The name Lindsay, once pronounced by my husband David with a tenderness that would envelop my heart with each sunrise, resonated in his gentle voice like a nascent sun, promising that I was his entire universe. On quiet nights, he would murmur it in my ear, his warm breath making me feel invulnerable. However, that night, my name sliced through the darkness in a way that shattered that illusion, not with love, but with a cold, unfamiliar venom that left me breathless. I woke in the middle of the night, the side of the bed next to me cold and empty. David wasn't there. My first thought was innocent. Perhaps he was in the bathroom or downstairs getting a glass of water. I turned over, ready to drift back to sleep, when a faint sound pierced the silence, a low, deliberate whisper, sharp in the stillness of our house. My heart pounded as I sat up, every nerve on edge. It was David's voice, cautious, controlled, coming from somewhere down the hall. Then, words that froze my blood. She doesn't suspect a thing yet. My breath hitched as if an invisible hand had tightened around my chest, squeezing the air out. That persistent unease I had been burying, the way David would hurriedly lock his phone when I entered the room, the vague excuses about long nights at work, all came rushing back, a wave of doubt and fear crashing over me. My hands trembled as I slipped out of bed, my bare feet finding the cold wooden floor, each step amplifying the dread that was coiling in my stomach. I followed the whispers to the door of his office, where a sliver of light escaped through the gap. I leaned against the wall, holding my breath, straining to hear more. My pulse was a deafening drum in my ears. "Yes, I've already transferred it," David said, his voice low, calculated like a predator stalking its prey. "It's going according to plan. Almost everything is ready." My throat constricted until I could barely swallow. "Transferred what? Almost everything ready for what?" My heart hammered so loudly I feared he could hear it. Then footsteps. Panic surged, and I scurried back to bed, pulling the covers over me just as the bedroom door creaked open. David entered, moving with the ease of someone who hadn't just been plotting in the shadows. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing my breathing to remain even, feigning sleep, though my mind screamed with questions. The mattress dipped as he lay down beside me, his steady breathing a cruel mockery of the turmoil that was tearing me apart. He was hiding something sinister, and it had everything to do with me. The next morning, while David slept, I crept into the kitchen, my phone trembling in my hands. I had never paid much attention to our finances. David had always handled the bills, investments, and savings, and I trusted him implicitly. But today, that trust felt like a noose around my neck. I opened the banking app, my eyes scanning the transactions, each number a stab to my heart. $500, $1,000, $200, $750, $2,000, all withdrawn in the last 3 months. They weren't enormous sums, but enough to scream that something was terribly wrong. I gripped the kitchen counter, my knuckles white, trying to control the panic that clawed at my chest. These withdrawals weren't for bills or investments. The money had simply vanished, disappearing into a void I couldn't comprehend. Checking the bank account so early? David's voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to see him leaning against the doorway, rubbing his neck with a sleepy smile that didn't reach his eyes. But when his gaze landed on my phone, a shadow of tension flickered across his face, fleeting but undeniable. "Just taking a look," I replied, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the storm raging inside me. "There are some withdrawals I don't recognize." He strolled lazily to the coffee maker, pouring himself a cup with a casual air that seemed rehearsed. "Oh, those are just some small investments I forgot to mention." He took a sip, his eyes avoiding mine, his smile a thin veneer over something darker. I searched his face for any crack in his facade, but David was a master of deception, his charm a weapon I had once fallen for. I nodded, pretending to accept his lie, but a new emotion stirred within me, not just doubt, but a cold certainty that he was betraying me in ways I couldn't yet understand. That night, I watched him like a hawk. He was constantly texting, always placing his phone face down as if guarding a secret. He would step outside to take calls, his voice hushed, laced with urgency, not wanting me to overhear. Then my chance arose. David announced he was going to take a shower and did something he never did. He left his phone on the table, unprotected. My heart leaped, but I forced myself to remain calm, counting the seconds until I was sure he was gone. I snatched the phone, my hands trembling as the screen lit up with a new message. Text Samuel White. Just make sure she remains in the dark. Almost everything is ready. My grip tightened, my pulse stuttering for a moment. Samuel White? Who is this person? And what did almost everything is ready mean? A cold dread washed over me, sinking into my bones as I placed the phone back on the table. The sound of the shower was a distant hum. David wasn't just hiding something. He was plotting against me, and his plan was nearing completion. I returned the phone to its place, my hands shaking as if I had touched something poisonous. The words burned in my mind. Just make sure she remains in the dark. My husband, the man I had vowed to love forever, was orchestrating a betrayal that threatened to shatter my life. I held my breath, the water still running in the bathroom. I had minutes to act, to protect myself before he returned, before his plan could tighten its grip. The next morning, he placed a cup of coffee in front of me, his smile warm but hollow, an act I now saw right through. "How's work going?" he asked, his concern dripping with falseness, each word a reminder of his deceit. I forced a weak smile, my heart heavy with the weight of what I knew. "Fine," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, every fiber of my being screaming to confront him. But I held back, knowing I needed to be strategic. "Lindsay," he said, placing his phone face down as always, "I was thinking we should reorganize our finances a bit, just as a precaution. You never know what life might throw our way." My eyes narrowed, but I kept my voice even, masking the fury that was building inside me. "What do you mean?" "We should consolidate our assets," he said smoothly, each word carefully chosen like a chess move in a game I hadn't realized we were playing. "If anything happens, it'll be easier to manage. I'll handle the paperwork, all you'll need to do is sign." My grip on the coffee cup tightened, the warmth doing nothing to melt the ice in my veins. I had been waiting for this moment, sensing his plan unfolding like a trap. He thought he could manipulate me, make it sound like a simple step, but I wasn't naive. I smiled, nodding slowly, my mind racing. "That sounds reasonable. Can you show me the documents first?" A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He hadn't expected me to agree so readily, but he recovered quickly, nodding with practiced ease. "Of course, I'll have everything ready soon." I didn't wait for soon. The moment David left for work, I called Violet, my lawyer and best friend from college. My voice trembled with urgency. I couldn't let him outmaneuver me. I needed to protect myself before he made his next move. As I poured everything out, the whispers in the night, the mysterious withdrawals, the disturbing message to Samuel White, Violet listened in silence, her calm anchoring me. When I finished, her voice was firm, yet urgent. "Lindsay, you need to move your assets immediately." I had been thinking about it all night, lying awake while David slept beside me, his very presence a betrayal. Hearing Violet say it solidified my resolve, turning fear into action. "Let's set up a trust," she continued. "Transfer everything of value into your name under it. David won't be able to touch a thing." "Do it," I said, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my heart, the weight of losing everything I had earned pressing down on me. In less than 3 days, we finalized everything. The apartment, savings accounts, investment shares, everything was protected, locked away from David's reach. No matter what he tried, he couldn't take anything from me. Days later, he came home early, sitting across from me with an air of importance, his eyes gleaming with a confidence that made my stomach churn. I knew the moment had arrived. "Lindsay," he began, placing a stack of papers on the table, his voice measured, "we need to have a serious conversation." I watched the papers, my heart steeled despite the turmoil of emotions within me. I was ready. "What is it?" "I want a divorce," he said, his voice calm, rehearsed, as if he had practiced the words 100 times. "I think it's for the best for both of us. We've grown apart. I don't want things to get more strained." I raised an eyebrow, showing no surprise, though my heart ached at the finality of it all. "Really?" He hesitated for a fraction of a second, a crack in his facade, then continued. "Yes, it's for the best." I remained silent, letting the moment stretch, letting him feel the weight of his own words. Then, I pushed the papers back across the table. Before we talk about that, there's something you need to know. He frowned, his confidence wavering. What is it? I met his gaze, my voice clear and deliberate, each word a dagger. I've already moved all my assets. The air in the room thickened, heavy as a storm cloud. David froze, his eyes widening, his jaw tightening as comprehension dawned. What? You can't. You can't take anything from me now, I continued, my tone firm, though my heart pounded with a mixture of fear and triumph. Everything is legally protected. The apartment, the savings, the investments, it's all secure. David remained silent, his face contorting with barely suppressed rage, his hands clenching into fists. He hadn't seen this coming, and the shock in his eyes was a small victory. I stood up, meeting his stunned gaze with a calm smile, though inside I trembled with the weight of what I had done. You were right about one thing, David. No one can predict what will happen. He didn't reply, but I could see his mind racing, calculating his next move, searching for a way to regain control. It didn't matter. The power had shifted, and for the first time, I held the cards. David didn't speak for a full minute, clutching the divorce papers so tightly his knuckles turned white. His anger was palpable, a storm brewing behind his eyes, but he fought to maintain his composure, as if he still held the upper hand. I adjusted my jacket, my heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and lingering fear. The weight of his betrayal still sat heavy on my chest. If there's nothing else, I think we're done here. He took a deep breath, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a cornered predator, still dangerous. We'll see each other in court, Lindsay, he said, his voice low and sharp as a blade. And you won't get away with this easily. I gave a wry smile, holding his gaze, refusing to let him see the flicker of fear his words ignited. Then go ahead and try. I walked out of the living room, a wave of victory washing over me, but I knew the battle was far from over. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived from David's lawyer, a formal divorce petition demanding half of all assets, including my apartment, 50% of our joint accounts, and even alimony, claiming I had forced him to sacrifice his career for our marriage. I laughed bitterly, the audacity of his lies cutting deeper than I expected. David had never sacrificed anything. I had carried the financial weight of our lives together, pouring my heart and soul into our shared dreams, while he plotted behind my back. He hadn't lost anything, but he wanted everything. I called Violet immediately, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and determination. We have a problem, I said, flipping through the stack of papers, each demand a fresh wound. She chuckled softly, her calm a lifeline. Let me guess, David isn't backing down. Of course not, I sighed, my fingers tracing the edges of the documents. He wants half my assets, the apartment and alimony. Violet scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Does he really think he has a chance? No, but he'll try to wear me down with every trick he has. Then we fight, I said, my voice firm despite the knot of fear in my stomach, the weight of his betrayal pressing down harder with each passing moment. It's time we showed him he picked the wrong opponent, Violet replied, her tone fierce, igniting a spark of hope within me. For days later, Violet and I were in her office, dissecting the lawsuit, each detail a stark reminder of the life I thought I had built with David. He doesn't have a leg to stand on, she said, placing the file on the desk with a decisive thud. You transferred your assets before he filed. Legally, he's entitled to nothing. What about the alimony claim? Baseless. Your income has always been the primary one. I let out a breath, relief mingling with the unease that had become my constant companion. Then my phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. Be careful, Lindsay. David doesn't play by the rules. A chill ran down my spine, my heart quickening as I stared at the words, but I pushed the fear away. I couldn't let it derail me. 3 days later, something shifted at work. Colleagues cast strange glances my way, their whispers following me like shadows. I thought I was imagining things, my nerves frayed from sleepless nights, until my assistant Eleanor walked into my office, her face tight with concern. There's something you need to see, she said, placing a printed sheet of paper on my desk. It was a post on an anonymous online forum. CFO embezzling company, funds to hide money from husband during divorce. Someone should look into this. Below it, dozens of comments, one chillingly specific. I know who it is, Lindsay. My name there, for the world to see, twisted into a lie that could destroy everything I had built. Anger flared in my chest, hot and relentless. David is behind this, I said coldly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside. Eleanor nodded, her eyes filled with worry. No doubt. If this spreads, it could ruin your reputation. I took a deep breath, forcing calm, though my hands trembled with fury. I couldn't let David destroy my career, the one thing I had built with my own strength. I need to see Violet now, I said, grabbing my phone, determination drowning out the fear. We're not going to let him get away with this. That evening, I met Violet and poured out the latest betrayal, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and hurt. She frowned, her eyes narrowing. He's trying to slander you. He wants you to lose your cool and make a mistake. I won't, I said, my voice firm, though my heart ached with the weight of David's relentless attacks. What's the plan? Violet's eyes gleamed with resolve. First, we send a cease and desist letter. If he spreads one more lie, we sue him for defamation and intentional damage to your reputation. A spark of hope ignited within me, a fire burning away the fear. David thought he could break me with lies, but he was wrong. I nodded, my jaw set. Let's do it. 3 days later, in Violet's office, she slid a document across the table, her expression grave. David has just filed a lawsuit accusing you of financial fraud. I froze, my heart plummeting. What? He claims you siphoned money from your joint accounts before transferring your assets, Violet said, her tone calm but tight. And he's not alone. There's a co-filer. I opened the file, my eyes landing on a name that sent a chill down my spine. Samuel White. David had an accomplice, someone working with him to take me down. Who is Ilya? I asked, my voice dry, barely masking the fear that gripped me. Violet crossed her arms, her expression grim. He's known for creating fake financial documents, been involved in lawsuits before, but no one's ever been able to pin anything on him with evidence. I flipped through David's court filings, my anger rising with each page. These transactions aren't mine, I exclaimed, my voice shaking with fury, the betrayal cutting deeper than ever. Violet nodded, her calm anchoring me. We suspected as much, but if we don't act fast, this could get serious. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Can we prove they're fake? Violet's smile was sharp, a glint of hope in the darkness. Not only can we prove it, we're going to turn this to our advantage. She handed the case over to a forensic financial specialist, and I spent the next week in a haze of anxiety and determination, obsessively checking my phone, jumping at every notification. A week later, Violet called me into her office, her eyes sparkling with a rare hint of excitement. You're going to like this, she said, placing a file in front of me. They made a mistake. The transactions David claims you made have a date and time stamp before your account even existed. I blinked, my heart leaping, a flash of hope piercing through the fog. What? Violet tapped the page, her finger tracing a list of bank statements. This account was opened in July, but their documents show transactions from May. They were too confident and didn't double-check. A slow, triumphant smile spread across my face as the weight of fear began to lift. They just destroyed themselves, I whispered, my voice thick with relief. Violet nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. We're not just going to dismiss this, we're going to countersue them for defamation and presenting forged evidence. 3 days later, Violet filed the countersuit, the words resonating with justice. The defendant David Reynolds, along with co-conspirator Ilya Marrow, knowingly submitted falsified evidence to defame and financially harm the plaintiff Lindsay Thompson. We also demanded damages for the harm they had caused, each lie a brick in the wall of their ruin. David wouldn't just lose. He would pay for every betrayal, for every moment he had made me doubt myself. That evening, I sat on my couch, savoring a rare moment of peace with a cup of coffee, the warmth grounding me. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered, and a snarling voice came through the other end. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" I gave a wry smile, my heart steady despite his venom. "Hello, David. Did you get the notification from your lawyer?" "I swear, Lindsay, you'll regret this," he hissed, his voice dripping with desperation. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." I leaned back, unafraid, the strength I had fought for growing within me. "No, David, you have no idea who you're dealing with." The line went dead, and I placed the phone back down, a smile lingering on my lips. He was desperate, grasping at straws, and I was ready for whatever he threw my way next. The courtroom was thick with tension, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat up straight, my eyes fixed on David across the room. He wore a tailored suit, but his hands gripped the table, his knuckles white, betraying the unease he couldn't hide. The judge flipped through the documents, his firm voice cutting through the silence. "Based on the evidence, the transactions Mr. Reynolds claimed Ms. Thompson made were impossible." A murmur rippled through the room, and I watched David, noticing the twitch in his eye, the clench of his jaw. He knew what was coming, and the fear in his posture was a silent victory. The judge continued, "A forensic accountant has confirmed that these transactions predate the plaintiff's account. This indicates that the documents submitted by Mr. Reynolds and his associate were fabricated." Violet let out a quiet chuckle beside me, and a wave of satisfaction washed over me, a fire that had been smoldering for months finally burning free. The judge banged his gavel, his voice resolute. "Due to the defendant's falsified evidence, this court dismisses all claims made by Mr. Reynolds and orders him to cover the plaintiff's legal fees." I couldn't suppress my smile as David's shoulders slumped, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. His lawyer stood up, his voice trembling, but the judge silenced him with a wave of his hand. "Furthermore, due to the deliberate submission of false information, I am ordering an investigation into the documents presented by Mr. Reynolds and his co-conspirator." David froze, the weight of his mistake crashing down on him. This was no longer just a divorce case. He faced real legal consequences, the kind that could shatter his life. The gavel fell, sharp and final. "This court is adjourned." Violet flashed a victorious smile, her eyes sparkling with triumph. "Perfect knockout," she whispered. David lingered, his steps heavy as he exited, the confidence he once wore like armor now gone. I slowed my pace, letting him feel my presence, my silent triumph burning brighter with each step. He turned, meeting my gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and defeat. I tilted my head, a slow smile spreading across my face. "Are we done here, David?" He said nothing, his silence louder than any words. There was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, I took a deep breath, the cool air cleansing the tension from my body, washing away the months of fear and betrayal. I had won, not just a legal battle, but a war against the man who tried to break me, to strip me of everything I had built. A week later, David's lawyer tried to negotiate to avoid the criminal investigation, his desperation palpable. We refused. He had brought this upon himself, and I had no intention of letting him escape the consequences of his actions. 2 weeks later, whispers spread like wildfire. David's colleagues spoke of his failed scheme, his attempt to manipulate the law for personal gain. His company terminated his employment, his reputation in the financial world shattered like glass. He sold his beloved sports car to cover legal fees, and his luxury apartment was put on the market, a symbol of the life he had lost. Everything he had tried to take from me, he ended up losing himself, each loss a testament to his own arrogance. I sat in my apartment one evening, sipping a glass of wine, the glittering city lights stretching out before me. My phone lit up with a message from Violet. "Congratulations, Lindsay. He's completely imploded." I smiled, setting the phone aside, the weight of the past months lifting from my shoulders. I felt lighter than I had in years. The scars of betrayal were still there, but they no longer defined me. The silence of my apartment was a sanctuary, a space free from David's manipulative messages, his late-night calls filled with threats. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the fear pressing on my chest, without the constant dread of what he might do next. The victory hadn't been easy. It had demanded every ounce of my strength, every fragment of my courage, but it was mine, in every sense of the word. David had lost everything, while I had kept what was rightfully mine, emerging stronger than I had ever been. That night, Violet insisted we celebrate, her voice shining with pride. At a sophisticated restaurant, my closest friends gathered, their laughter a balm to my soul as I walked in. Applause erupted, warm and genuine, a reminder of the people who had stood by me in the darkness. Violet raised her glass, her eyes sparkling. To Lindsay, who taught us to never underestimate a smart woman with a plan. I laughed, clinking glasses with her, the wine rich with the taste of triumph, its smoothness a contrast to the bitterness of the past. Beatrice tilted her head, her eyes warm with empathy. How does it feel knowing he has nothing left? I set down my glass, a soft smile forming as I searched for the words. Relieving, I said, my voice steady but thick with emotion. But more than that, it feels like freedom, like I've reclaimed every piece of myself he tried to steal. Beatrice nodded, her empathy grounding me, a reminder of the strength I found in community. What's next? She asked, her voice gentle but curious. I took a deep breath, the pulse of the city humming outside the window, alive with possibilities. To enjoy life, I said, a smile breaking through, and to never again let anyone have that kind of power over me. Glasses rose in agreement, cheers echoing through the room, a celebration not just of my victory, but of the resilience that had sustained me. After the celebration, I walked home alone along the avenue, my heels clicking softly on the stone pavement. Boston shimmered under the night sky, its golden lights reflecting on the streets, creating a dreamy glow that felt like a promise. A cool October breeze brushed my skin, crisp and invigorating, and I tightened my coat, not from the cold, but to savor every second of this freedom, this moment of being entirely my own. My phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing on the screen. This isn't over. I gave a wry smile, recognizing David's last desperate attempt to maintain control. Without hesitation, I tapped the number and clicked block. The action was final, empowering. He no longer had any hold over me, no dominion over the life I had reclaimed. On my balcony, I gazed at the glittering city skyline, the lights stretching endlessly before me. The air felt fresher, lighter, as if I had shed a burden I had carried for too long. My story with David was over, its final chapter written in my victory. I had won, not just legally or financially, but by taking myself back, by finding the strength to rise above betrayal. David thought I would be an easy target in his game of manipulation. He plotted, schemed, and believed I would crumble under pressure. But he was wrong. I stayed calm, made a plan, and counterattacked at the right moment, turning his overconfidence against him. His haste, his arrogance exposed the cracks in his lies, and I used those cracks to bring him down, to take back what was mine. The past was behind me, its lessons etched into my soul. Ahead lay a future I owned, one where I would never again let anyone control my destiny. Life isn't always fair, and sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us, their actions a wound that lingers. But Lindsay's story is more than a divorce and a lawsuit. It's a testament to resilience, to the power of preparation and self-protection in all relationships, especially when finances are intertwined. Never lose control of your life. When faced with betrayal, stay calm, make a plan, and strike back when the time is right. The greatest victory isn't revenge. It's reclaiming yourself, standing tall in the face of those who tried to tear you down. Thank you for listening to Lindsay's story. Have you ever been through something similar? Tell us in the comments if you identified with it. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share the video to support us, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming adversity.